My friend Jill, it is so great to see you here today. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Jill. I am what's called a death doula or end of life doula, if that feels a little softer for everybody. I am a career changer. So, I'm 44 years old and I had been in food service basically since I was about 16. So, a really long time. And a few years ago, I decided I wanted to do something different where I could help people at a time in life that can feel very overwhelming because most of us haven't thought about our death or the death of our loved ones.
It's such tremendous work, and we're going to get into how you got there. It's brave. It's going to happen, right? But we all have a fear. A lot of us have the fear, Jill. But let's step back because you made some very critical decisions to get you where you are today and starting your own podcast, by the way. What helped you make the decision to do the work of service that you're doing today? And by the way, I don't know if everybody caught that. She's a death doula. So there's not a lot of people out there that do what you do. But let's step back and help us understand like the critical decisions that you made, Jill, that you said, you know what, this is for me.
When I took care of my grandmother at the end of her life back in 2011, I was so impressed by hospice and the work that they did helping me as the caregiver when that wasn't really their job. Their job was really to take care of my grandmother when they would visit. But they were so kind to me when I asked a lot of questions because I was so confused and I was so overwhelmed because it wasn't like you see in TV. I
Yeah.
didn't think that it was going to be the way that it was. And it ended up being a beautiful experience. I wouldn't change any of it. And that planted the seed in my brain of maybe this is work that I want to do. But I had a
Mm.
bakery that I owned at the time. My husband and I owned it together. So we didn't
Wow.
have like a big income coming in where I could just leave my job and make
Yeah.
the change. And I put it on the back burner for a while. We actually had a baby at that time. We had a second one. We moved, life just kind of went on. And then when I was getting ready to turn 40, there's that time in your life where you kind of start thinking, what do I want to do from here out?
Yeah.
And working in kitchens is really hard work. It's hard on your body. It's hard on you mentally and emotionally as well. They're very high stress. And
Yeah.
as much as I love being in a kitchen, I knew that long term, this wasn't something I wanted to do when I was 65 or 70. And I
Mm.
wasn't going to be able to retire early. It's not like we make a lot of money as line cooks.
Right.
And so I started thinking again, like, well, I don't know, maybe this, end of life thing might be a good idea. And then I heard on a podcast, somebody said they were a death doula, and
Wow.
it felt like one of those times when like something like lit up in my body and I was like, oh gosh, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I let fear hold me back for a little bit. I just was, this is crazy. What am I thinking? Going to school to learn
Right.
something totally different.
Right.
But I started reaching out to some different death doulas I could find online and I started looking into it. And then I decided in like January of 2020 that I was going to do it. I was going for it. So February, I started my training. By
Right.
March, everything shut down. And so all of a sudden, something that I thought was going to take me a really long time ended up getting done a lot faster. And then the reality hit of, now I'm supposed to go back to work full time. And I also
Yeah.
have this business, and trying to do both was a little, it's difficult. It's difficult to start a business and build up a new business, especially something that nobody's really heard of.
That's
And
right.
so it took me about a year or so to finally say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to focus on my doula business. And that was January of 2022. So a little bit over a year ago. And it's been difficult. I'm not going to lie and say that it's been an easy road,
Right.
especially because most people, even in what I would consider the end of life space, people that run assisted livings, hospices, elder care lawyers,
Right.
9 out of 10 of them, when I would say I'm a death doula, it would get that response of, wait, you're a what? What do you do?
Right.
And
Right.
So I've spent the last year just educating people on what death doulas even do. And as a like side benefit for me, I realized that the more that I learned about death and dying and grief, the more that I sat with the fears that I did have, which I didn't think I had any. I was always kind of fascinated by death. I didn't think that it
Right.
scared me, but there
Right.
was still things about death that I worried about, just kind of, quietly within myself. And the more that I faced all of it, the more I really enjoy my life. I'm much more present with my family and even my friends. I have a different appreciation for life now that I've kind of faced my death.
Right.
And that's something that I didn't expect. And it's also something that now I'm pretty passionate talking about, which is partially why I
Yes.
started my own podcast.
Which is why you started it. So and we connected at some point in that time in your journey with some other things that I was working on. But just so I understand and everybody else in the audience, with what you do, are you there for the person who's transitioning, or are you there for the family, or are you there for everybody, much like a hospice nurse? So I'm familiar with hospice nurse, and I think they're all angels, and having worked with them for my parents separately, when they transitioned. But what's your primary role? It could be for all the things. I just want to clarify it here so that everybody knows. Yeah.
It's definitely a little bit of everything. And
Okay.
not all doulas do things the same. We're all a little bit different depending on, how we were trained and what kind of direction we go in.
I
I
see.
work with people at all stages of life to prepare for death. But then when it comes to, a client that maybe is actively dying, I do work very closely with the family members as well.
Got it.
I help support the family members. I can even really almost like mediate some conversations, because oftentimes when, say, dad is dying and then there's three kids, everybody's got a difference of opinions and
Right.
old wounds start to come up.
Oh, yes.
The oldest one's still mad that the youngest one got a bike before they did. And all of a sudden it's being taken out on that you don't take care of dad the way that I think you
Oh,
should.
boy. Right.
And it's natural for that to happen, partially because we don't talk about what we want. And so nobody really knows what dad actually wanted because dad never talked about it.
Dad never
And
talked about it. Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
we
so,
don't. It's such it's a fearful topic. So I love this work and your journey. I also love, and I want to step back when you said, when you heard the word, how it lit you up. And I truly just want to emphasize that, because that's the work we should be doing. When there's something that makes your heart sing, that's the path, right? And you went through difficult decisions. And like you said, you had a business and starting your own business or working and whatever. These are the difficult decisions that we have to make. So I think it's important to understand that, right? These are all difficult for everybody, and support each other in this process. But I love all of that part of your story. So, what kind of guidance then, Jill, can we give to people who are listening? Perhaps they know somebody who is transitioning, and if they don't, they will at some point in their life, right? We're all here from our parents, right? So maybe they have an elderly aunt or anybody in their family. What's something we can think about in advance so we can start to prepare this work?
that's a great question. Really, I would say the first thing to do is start to have the conversation, even just gently. Start first with somebody that you're maybe not as close with so that it doesn't feel
Mm,
quite so scary. Talk to your friend and just say, hey, have you ever thought about your end of life? Have you ever thought about what you would want? And that can start the conversation between the two of you, so that then when you start kind of moving that conversation closer and closer to people, having it with your spouse, having it with your children, having it with your parents, even for me, I still have a hard time having the conversation with my mother because
mm,
she shuts down a little bit. I'm a little uncomfortable, and this is the work that I do. So
yeah.
it's not like I'm saying it's going to be easy for us to basically flip upside down what we've done about death almost our entire lives for most of us, which
Right,
is
right.
it completely ignore it. There's people that have literally never said the word death or dying. They'll say they passed away or they moved on or they come up
Yeah,
with all these different terms because they're afraid to say the word. And it's like the superstition almost of like, it's going to make it happen to me if I think about it
yeah.
or if I talk about it.
Wow. Right? I
Yeah.
hear you say that so loud and clear. I don't know if I heard that growing up, but yes, it's almost like we're jinxing ourselves. Like, oh my gosh, if we talk about it, then it's even closer than maybe it should have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an incredible statement right there, Jill. I love that you said that. But yeah, there's a lot of work, but it's an awkward conversation, uncomfortable conversation. And I think what you're suggesting here is let's just start practicing. So
Correct.
I want to announce that I picked a song and I shared it
Ooh.
with someone. And then I decided, do those words of that song really match? And I'm like, I think I need to go back to that. But I just did that last week and I felt so brave in saying, yeah, this is the song I want you to play.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that means something to me because when I hear that song, it moves me. So what we're saying here, as with everything in life, it's a practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And let's support what we want because what happens is someone transitions and then we don't know what they want. And we're all like playing that guessing game about did they want to wear a certain thing? Did they want certain music played? Did they want a big party or no party? Like these are important elements of our life. So geez, I love the work. So if we could give one more tip with what else could we share, Jill? Because this is just such fascinating work to me.
Let's see. One more important tip. I mean, honestly, learning what you can learn about the realities of the end of life, because avoiding it is not going to prevent it from being something we have to face. And there is a
Mm,
lot of resources out there. There's a lot of
sure.
death doulas now that we use our social media platforms to start education and conversations. There's resources online if somebody wants something. One of the brands is called Five Wishes, which is a great way to have this conversation with your loved ones. It's all
Mhm.
written down on a piece of paper. Actually, it's something I'm going to do with my husband on Valentine's Day. That's going to be our
Oh, wow.
Valentine's Day activity because we had all the legal paperwork done. That's been
Yes,
done for many years. But
sure,
again, there's like little details of what type of music would you even want? What do you like? I know him so well, but every once in a while I still get surprised. So we're going to sit
sure.
down together and we're going to do five wishes as
I
our
love that.
Valentine's date. The more that you can educate yourself and just learn about it, the easier it all will be, because we will all have to face it one day, or we're going to die first. And then that means that then we leave our loved ones. Because
Right,
I know if something were to happen to me, I don't want my husband having to be at the hospital answering questions that he doesn't know an answer to. He should be able to be dealing with his own emotions and taking
right.
care of our children,
Yeah,
not answering questions that he's like, I have no idea what she wanted. And I don't know,
right.
does she, I don't even know what intubation means. How would I know if she would want it? And it's just, a little bit of education goes a long way in this type of work.
Oh, well, I find it so fascinating. I'm sure everyone else will find it. But, my one of my favorite questions to ask, regardless of what people do, is do you have a favorite piece of clothing or accessory and how does it make you feel? Do you have something that lights you up?
I do. I have a necklace that was my grandmother's. It's what's called the Hand of Fatima. Probably a lot of people have seen it. It's the hand with like the longer middle finger and then they graduate down. She probably picked it up at a yard sale or a flea market. That woman loved to go to those things. And she wore it all the time. And now it's my absolute favorite piece of jewelry. I wear it almost every time I leave the house. It just makes me feel connected to her. And I'll sometimes, if I get anxious, even I hold it and it like hangs real close to my heart. So I like hold it close to my heart and it just makes me feel like there's still a connection because her physical body is gone, but I don't think she's gone. I still feel her sometimes. And that's just another way that I can access that feeling, is by wearing that piece of jewelry. And it's my favorite. And if I lost it, it would be a major practice in letting go.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah, I love
but
that.
it's my favorite.
No, what a beautiful story and gesture. Joe, again, this is such fascinating work. If someone wanted to continue the conversation with you, talk to you a little bit more, where's the best place for them to find you?
My business name is End of Life Clarity. Pretty
Okay.
straightforward. That's what I am on all social medias, but it's also my website. And if
Okay.
people wanted to access me, you can go to my website, and it's got a link to my podcast, all my social medias, all that. So just endoflifeclarity.com.
Beautiful. I'll put that link in the show notes to make it easy for them on a difficult topic. So let's give them some ease in this work. But thank you again for your time today, Jill. I hope you have an incredible day.
Thank you so much. It really was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.